I'd like to start off by thanking all of you for your attention in this matter. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you are gathered here today not only to determine who the rightful heir of the throne will be, but to also determine what the future of this country will hold. For the characteristics of the man you will choose to sit upon the throne will exuberantly shine through each and every citizen of this nation on a daily basis. For a nation is only as strong as its own leader. Our nation has suffered far too long due to poor leadership, and it is time the citizens receive a leader that will end this suffering. I truly believe that if you choose my client today, you will be promising the citizens of Denmark a brighter future. However, if you are not convinced that this is the case, let me refresh your memory of all the matters that we have discussed during this trial. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, we began this case by observing the supernatural event that occurred on the outskirts of the castle. From that situation, it was concluded that Hamlet was in fact sane at the time that he saw the apparition of his own father. Given this information, it can be inferred that my client, who saw the spectre 2 times, and the 2 witnesses, Marcellus, who saw the spectre 4 times, and Bernardo, who saw the spectre 3 times, were all sane at the time as well. This then proved that specters do exist, and that each person that encountered the spectre was given an equal opportunity to react to the supernatural event. Unlike Hamlet, my client chose to approach the situation more cautiously. My client knew absolutely nothing about the spectre, and therefore never trusted it for one moment. Without showing the slightest bit of fear, my client stood his ground and tried to reason with the apparition. From this situation, it can be concluded that my client was not tempted to believe in any rumors or take any sort of action before witnessing the spectre for himself. It can also be concluded that my client remained loyal to his friend Hamlet by never mentioning the apparition to anyone, just as Hamlet had asked him to do so. Though this situation was far from ordinary, my client refused to betray his friend and stayed true to his word. From there, this case then moved towards the situation involving the opposition's client and his conflict over a small piece of land that had been taken from his father by the Polish. The opposition's client took action before any sort of thought process and immediately assembled an army with the intentions to go to war. The opposition's client himself then led the army of over 1,000 men towards the battlefield and exposed himself to possible fatality. Then, the entire army and their leader put their lives on the line as they fought over a piece of land with the value of approximately 5 ducats. Though the opposition's client was successful in reclaiming the piece of land, the battle resulted in a great number of lives lost and a large amount of money spent. The opposition's client's actions were seen as very costly due to the fact that the land had such little value to it. Lastly, this case concluded by observing the tragedy that occurred in the castle and the final moments of Prince Hamlet's life. After avoiding all conflict, my client quickly rushed to the side of his dying dear friend Hamlet in order to spend whatever time they had left together. My client remained loyal to Hamlet right till the very end of Hamlet's life and never once betrayed him. My client was even willing to poison himself in order to die side by side with Hamlet, proving his deep devotion to those that mattered to him. Hamlet, however, asked that he remain in this world and make an effort to clean up the mess that Hamlet had left behind. To this very day, my client has remained loyal to his friend, and my client continues to share the story of Prince Hamlet. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, all 3 of these events provided this court with an abundance of evidence that should suffice enough in order to allow you to make your decision as to who you will crown as the next king of Denmark. The way I see it, you, the jury, have been placed in a similar situation to the narrator in Robert Frost's most famous poem, The Road Not Taken. For 2 roads diverged, and you could not travel both, and now here you sit, faced with the decision of which road you shall take. Before you are to decide, let's look down both roads as far as we possibly can. If you are to choose my client, you will have given Denmark a distinguished, perspicacious ruler that is capable of taking this nation to unthinkable heights. Denmark's king would be a scholarly figure that approaches crises in a civil manner, a man that would solemnly believe that the pen is stronger than the sword, a man that always assesses his situation before taking action and that will never take action before doing so. A man that will not question the ways of life, but will instead make the most of what life gives him. A man that is loyal right till the very bitter end, and that's loyalty is so strong that he is willing to sacrifice himself for those that matter to him. If my client is chosen, Denmark will finally have a chance to rebuild itself into a glorious unified nation that it has yet to be in the past. On the other hand, if you choose the opposition's client, you will notice the path leads to darkness down the way. For the opposition's client is nothing but a young, naive prince whose only solution consists of war. His intentions alone to possess the crown should be enough to create some suspicion. What does this prince plan to do with Denmark, and is Denmark the key to an unknown ploy? Will the prince bring Denmark even more misfortune, and will the prince see the lives of the citizens of Denmark as inferior to the acquisition of land? And in that process, how many lives will be lost, and how much money will be wasted in these pointless efforts? All of these questions, yet no answers whatsoever. The opposition's client has proven himself to be ruthless and has proven to take action without any consideration of potential consequences. The opposition's client is not afraid to make himself vulnerable, which translates into making this nation vulnerable to even more suffering. Denmark has already lost 2 kings recently and is now struggling more than ever. This exact mindset is very similar to the previous men that have worn that crown. The preceding kings were all war-hungry men that made their decisions based off impulse. Their lack of judgment before taking action is exactly what led them to their deaths. What is to happen to this nation if a 3rd king was to die? While under those rulers, our people have suffered and struggled to survive. War brings nothing but chaos and despair to a nation as a whole. By choosing the opposition's client, you would be promising our nation the same fate that came with the past rulers and the continuation of the desolation of Denmark. In other words, you would be allowing all the same mistakes to continue to be repeated. If you are still unconvinced, perhaps Robert Frost's final lines may persuade you. Frost says, "2 roads diverged in a wood, and I took the one less traveled by, and that has made all the difference." Again, I thank you for your attention in this matter, as that concludes my closing statement.